Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So the lighting is kind of bad this time. It's like only good if I get really close. But I wanted to film a reading wrap-up video for April and May because I never did those. And even though it's near the end of June, I still want to try and get back on it because I've been really busy because school, but I want to graduate soon. So there's no more excuse to not get these wrap-ups out. So yeah, I'm just gonna be talking about all the books that I read in April and May. And I read a decent amount in April. May was honestly pretty rough because I don't know why, but it was just busy. And I have some matcha with me. So let's do it. So the first book that I read in April was like a little book club book that I did with some of my friends. It was super casual and we were talking about reading thriller books because that's a genre that we all read together. And my friend had read this book by Alice Feeney and she was like, it's so good. So I had never heard of her before, but I trusted her and we just found another book that by Alice Feeney that looked good. And that book was His and Hers by Alice Feeney. I honestly really like the cover. Looks pretty cool. It is about kind of like the mysteries of a small town coming up when this woman gets killed, and it's like the reporter who is from the town, she knows the woman and she finds out about it, and also like the detective from the town as well. So they all have like their secrets and they're all related to one another in some ways, and it kind of just like devolves into a mystery about who is killing all these people that both of the characters, the guy detective and the woman reporter, know, like who's a suspect and also why, and at the same time like all their secrets are coming up as it's happening. And that sounded really interesting in retrospect, or like in theory, but the writing, I feel like my main criticism of this book, I can't say without spoiling it. So I'm gonna say my general thoughts about it and then kind of do all spoiler stuff because that's where my main problem, I guess, comes out with this book. But it has a pretty quick paced writing style. I don't think it's too simple, and you kind of get to understand the characters nicely without making it too long and actually you getting bored. It's more of a short book. I think it's a little over, yeah, it's just like 300 pages, so it's pretty short. And I like the setting. I was really interested in trying to figure out what would happen next, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna get into spoilers because I can't really remember much about this book since I read it at the beginning of April. But what I remember is my problem with it and why I gave it, I think I gave this a 2 out of 5. Yeah, and why I gave it 2 out of 5 stars was because I feel like the themes that come up are kind of downplayed and you don't really know about them. There's like sexual assault with minors. There is obviously violence because like it's a murder, but like the sexual assault in this book and literally like the rape is so crazy because I feel like the author, like that's obviously a spoiler, but also I think it's a trigger warning that people should know about. But okay, I'm gonna put a spoiler up now, but it's like they are these group of little girls and like one of them is a ringleader and she leads all of them to like literally, like in her brain it's like sexually please these men, but in reality that's just like rape because they're underage. And the way that the book or the author discusses it is like using it as a shock factor and something to villainize like obviously the ringleader, but I just don't think it was discussed enough at all, and it just felt kind of like cheap and also like offensive. I don't know, not to me personally, but like while reading I was like, this feels a little weird about how that topic was being used and how it was discussed kind of lightly, and it really wasn't explored at all. But it's just like that's a big jump, I think, because it kind of goes from 0 to 100 in that whole friend group. When I read it I was like when it happened. So I don't know. And there's also like this one character who is such an evil person, but she doesn't really get explained. She just like again is used as a shock factor, and I just feel like that's just kind of cheap because you could take time to develop this character more, but like, and the weird things that the horrible things that she does, the weird like kind of unexplainable things. But I don't know, I didn't really like that. Also, there was one big twist where I was like, okay, I kind of could see us reaching it, but then at the very end, like genuinely the last chapter, there's another twist and the killer's identity changes, and I was like as soon as that second twist happened and you rethink everything that's led up to that point, in my brain it kind of fell apart, and that just kind of made me angry because I was like, why did we need this extra twist? It was just gonna make me angry. But I don't know, I definitely would say that it kept my attention, but then at the end I was reading and I was like, what is going on? Like, but not in a good way. So I don't know if I'm gonna continue to read Alice Finney's books, but yeah, this was interesting, I guess, and memorable, but just like the parts that made me angry. So yeah, this is His and Hers by Alice Feeney, and I give it 2 out of 5 stars. Okay, kind of on the topic of books that made me shocked and not in a good way. I don't know why. The second book kind of also relates to this category, but it's The Foxhole Court by Nora Sakovic, and I think I saw this on Pinterest or TikTok for being like about hockey and drama or something, and I had seen it kind of around on YouTube, so I just put it on my holds. And it's not even about hockey, it's about this made-up sport that I imagine to be hockey plus rugby called Exie, and it's about this boy who's really good at playing Exie, and he kind of has an unstable support system, and after high school he's like, okay, I'm gonna leave the sport, like, I gotta get a job, I gotta make money. And then this coach takes players from kind of hard backgrounds and help them get a career into Exie, recruits him to the team, and it's full of like ragtag, really different interesting people, and it kind of just follows the games that they play, and there's like drama and obviously there's secrets, and that's basically it. And it sounds kind of interesting and juicy, and it was a little bit, but it's just that there were like again some themes that just didn't sit right with me and felt like they were just so weirdly underdeveloped, but like they need to be more developed. Like the same themes of sexual assault and like drug use, and also there's like one gay character, or like one character who is confirmed to be gay, and the way that the author uses him, sometimes I have to admit there were like a few funny one-liners, but the rest of the times I was just really disturbed, not disturbed, but like I just didn't like how he was used as a character, and how so many times like his horrible actions paired with him being gay just made his whole identity. Like we only knew him as wanting to like get with the main character as a joke or not, I don't know, and like the weird stuff that he was forced to do by like one of the other Exie players, and the Exie player is like really violent and honestly such a horrible person towards Neil, who is the main character that gets like recruited to the whole team. And then I was just like, what the hell is going on? And it was just such a weird book because I was trying to figure out where it was going. Like, oh, are we going to play like a rival team? Is this like a romance? Like, what the hell? They do play, I think, like one game, and it's honestly not that interesting. I don't know why a new sport had to be made. I don't know why they could have just played hockey or field hockey or something. And also, I just never liked any of the characters, except for the fact that I constantly felt bad for Neil because he was like suffering left and right at the hands of Andrew, who's like the ringleader, and they do like hazing, I guess, and the hazing stuff like really didn't sit right with me, because even if the character doesn't feel like it was that big of a deal, I feel like as the author they have a responsibility to still discuss those topics with a certain amount of care, and I just didn't see any of that. So I was just like, I don't think I want to read the rest of the series. So okay, this is also just a spoiler and like me going down the rabbit hole because I didn't want to read the rest of the series, but I still wanted to figure out what happened. But basically he falls in love. Neil and Andrew get together when in the first book Andrew is literally tormenting Neil and like forcing him to take drugs at the hands of Nicky, who is supposed to be like the gay guy of their team. And it's so like I really didn't like them at all because he was such a bully and like an aggressive person. But I guess somehow in the series things change and they get together. I don't know, but after reading that I became even more shocked. I think I don't know if I'm explaining it well because I don't really remember, but I just wouldn't really recommend unless you like really messy team dynamics, I guess, and you're okay with them getting kind of violent. I don't know. Wasn't my cup of tea. I didn't expect it to be like that. But yeah, that is The Foxhole Court by Nora Sekovic, and I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. Also, the characters feel kind of 2D, and the writing style isn't my favorite. It's a little bit bland and is not very descriptive, but that is why I rated it. Then after that, I read The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This is my first Christina Lauren. I can't remember where I saw The Unhoneymooners, but this is a romance book about this girl. I think her name is Olive, and she has a twin sister named Amy. And on Amy's wedding day to this guy, I don't know what his name is, but she's getting married to this guy. And the thing about Amy is that she's really lucky and like she gets a lot of free stuff at her wedding, and I think she gets like free seafood catering. And Olive does not like seafood, so she gets like her own chicken dish. And the groom's brother, this guy named Ethan, he also doesn't like seafood, so then they both get their separate chicken dish. And then it turns out that everyone who ate the seafood gets food poisoning or something, except for Olive and Ethan. So then after the wedding, they're all sick and Amy is like bedridden. But the thing is, they have Amy and like the groom, they have a honeymoon for like the day right after their wedding, but because all of them are sick they can't go, but she won it for free. So she's like, Olive, you're my twin sister, Ethan is the only one who didn't get sick, you guys should go and take the spot because it's free and like you wouldn't want to waste an opportunity. I think it's a trip to Hawaii. And at first you're like, no, I can't. But then she gets convinced. She's like, yeah, like I don't have a job right now. I guess I have like time to take a break is what she's thinking. So she goes. And obviously you guys can guess what happens next. They fall in love. It's really cute. This feels very, not very, but like on the more mature side of the romance that I think has been coming out. It's kind of, if you've read Ashley Poston's books, specifically like The 7 Year Slip, it kind of reminded me of that in the way that it balances both romance and literary fiction, because it talks about different issues. Because Olive is unemployed and she's kind of talking about how like she feels like a failure in her 20s and she doesn't really know where she's gonna end up or what her future is gonna look like. And also kind of about her like body image and different things. And I liked how that was discussed with care and like a good amount of time, but also there was a really nice romance and they felt more like real people. The banter was really good, I can't even lie. If I have screenshots, I'll put it up. But it didn't feel too cheesy. They still felt like real people. And I don't know, I think it was such a breath of fresh air compared to the rest of the romances that I've been reading, because sometimes I read it and it just feels so cringy and like they're overly playing into tropes. And even though this one kind of has fake dating, it didn't feel that cringy. And it was just really enjoyable. The writing style was so good. I loved Olive and Ethan's banter. It felt so just funny and still realistic. I just liked the humor. I think Christina Lauren's humor really jived well with me, and it was just such a pleasant time to read. The writing style is great, nicely paced. I love the characters. I can just really picture so clearly the things that they were doing. Like they do paintball or something and I can just imagine like what was happening, and it just was such a good time. So I really recommend this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and literally after that I put like the rest of Christina Lauren's catalogs on my TBR because I was like, I am excited to read the rest of her books. So yeah, that was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. Then I read the book Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. This is a YA fantasy book. It is about this girl, Vanya, and she is an orphan. So like she gets adopted by these two gods. It's either death and like fortune or something, or like death and life. I don't know. The point is these two fairy godmother-esque beings are now her adoptive mothers, and they can grant her like their help when she's in a sticky situation, but then she'll have to become indebted to them. So now that she's like, I think she's either 17 or 18, but now that she's like kind of a teenager and she's about to become independent, she's like, no, I do not want to become in debt to you. Like, I want to be my own person. But at the same time, she is constantly in trouble because it first opens up with her being in like the identity of a princess, but in reality she's like stolen the princess's identity, and like the princess is in rags and she's the princess with like a magical pearl necklace that transforms her. So something happens and she gets cursed by a witch, I think, that is like, you will turn into jewels, aka die, because she'll be like a rock if you don't right your wrongs or something. I'm not explaining it well at all, but basically she now is tasked with a life or death mission that she has to kind of fulfill all the horrible things that she does if she wants to survive like the next full moon or something. Like as the days pass and she's like unable to complete the task, like there are like more jewels on her body and she's finding it harder to move and stuff. And at the same time, she also gets caught up in the investigation because in the world, they're like, are they called prefects? They might be called prefects, but aka like the government detectives that are trying to figure out who has been stealing from all the royals. It's Vanya, spoiler, and she has to try and like obviously not get caught. And there's this one junior prefect named Emmerich, and she and him kind of have a romance, and there are honestly kind of multiple plot lines that are going in the book, but at one point the main thing is that like she's gonna turn into a rock if she doesn't right her wrongs, and it just follows her journey with that. There's also, as I said before, a really cute romance with her and Emmerich. I really like the dynamic between the two. Vanya is so funny. She's actually really refreshing as a YA female main character. Usually they're like really passive and they don't know what's going on, but she really has a funny personality and she's really not afraid to say her mind, is kind of blunt and makes rash decisions, but she's also just such an interesting character and you can really understand where she's coming from. And Emmerich is more quiet. A lot of times he's like flustered. Like I think it said multiple times that his ears were turning red or something. It was like those subtleties that you started to realize that they were gonna fall in love. And I think it was just a really cute YA fantasy book. I remember just enjoying it while I was reading it, but now thinking back in retrospect, I don't know how much of it I remember, as you can probably tell with me trying to explain. But it was a good experience, just not the most memorable. If you're looking for a YA fantasy book with a more assertive and honestly just funny main character, I would recommend, but I wouldn't like tell you like run and put this on hold or on your TBR. I just liked it, but again, like for myself, I do not think I'm gonna continue the series because it was kind of long. It was like a little over 500 pages. I might be wrong, but it just felt like the pacing was a little long and I didn't really know many of the characters' names because I feel like we got so much fantasy jargon thrown at us at once. But at least for me, sometimes I was like, legit, who is this? Like, what is going on? But yeah, I would recommend. I think it's a solid YA fantasy book, and I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Next book that I read is also for like the book club that I did with my friends, and I got this physical because I just want an excuse to read physical because I like that better than reading on my iPad. And this is The Perfect Couple by Ellen Hilderbrand, and I didn't realize this was like a Netflix series adaptation, so it has that kind of weird real people cover. But this is by an author who usually writes like literary fiction, I think, and she sets a lot of her stuff either near the beach or like in a sea town, I don't know, but this takes place in Nantucket, New Jersey, I think. Basically, the bride's best friend dies on the night of a wedding at Nantucket, and it's kind of like a drama and mystery in one, and it's talking about all the secrets that the family has and what they're keeping from each other and the different dynamics, because the groom, this is the groom, yeah, the groom's family is really rich, and his mom is the one that basically put the whole wedding together. She did a lot of the planning, and the where is it? I think this is her. The bride is from a less well-off family. She's kind of like lower or just middle class, so it's talking about those kind of wealth dynamics, and also just how all of the different people here are related to each other and what they're struggling with, or kind of what secrets they're holding. And I would say this was a little hard to get through in the beginning because it just felt like I was getting info dumped random stuff, and it didn't really feel that interesting. And even when some of the secrets got out, for some reason it felt really predictable, because this might be a spoiler, but like there's one main secret that all of them have, and it's just that like they cheat. It's literally just that they can't like be in a committed relationship, like they always gotta be cheating, and it's like all of them are cheating with one another. So when that just continuously happened, I was like, this is so predictable, and I was like, I don't really enjoy reading about this or find it that compelling, because like why do they all have to cheat with each other? Like I just don't. And that's just their secret, that they cheat, and it's like, great, there's one other secret, but the way that that one ends just really felt unnatural to me, because I was like, why are we being rage baited? Why am I being made a fool of? But all in all, I think once you get into it, you're like, I want to know what the secret is, and the secret is like they cheat, and then I'm disappointed. But like the writing kept me interested, I guess. I really like the setting of Nantucket. I could really imagine it with like the kind of calm blue skies, like the rich white houses with those kind of trims near the sea. That's just that whole vibe really appealed to me, because I love like thinking about the beach, and I was ready for summer at that point. But yeah, thinking back, I don't have many fond memories of this. I would say this is a good beach read if you really are just like, I don't want to think too hard and I want to kind of be surprised, but I wouldn't say it's anything that special, and I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is You Should Be So Lucky by Kat Sebastian. I think I got this from a recommendation from Carrie Can Read, and it's a historical romance about this baseball player and this reporter who fall in love. It's a gay romance in like the 1990s, I think, and it's kind of talking about how the baseball player, his name is Eddie, and he's kind of in a slump because before he made his debut into like the like real series, the team that he was playing for before, he was like the star player, and then as soon as he gets drafted into this new series or this new team, he starts to really struggle, and like every single time he misses it, or like he never gets a home run. And the other main love interest is this guy who is a reporter, and he is kind of closed off. I don't know if this is a spoiler, I'm gonna say it anyways, but like he's kind of closed off because his lover before died, and he's kind of left with the apartment and like the dog that they used to share together. So now he's kind of just in a point where he hasn't really let anybody in, and something happens and his boss tells him to report on Eddie, and that's when they begin to get to know each other. And it just kind of spirals into this really, really beautiful romance. I felt like it was so well paced because I still was really rooting for Eddie to, you know, get out of his slump. And it kind of talks about how, like, athletes are portrayed in the media and how people really view them as, like, very 2D, and it's all about the performance. And it also talks about how kind of people had to keep it a secret about being gay, like in the 1990s or maybe early 2000s. But it just, besides that, which I really like the discussion of both because I didn't know much about either, it just has such a beautiful romance. It definitely is slow burn. I really liked how they started as friends, and you could kind of tell that they wanted a little bit more from each other, but they were being like reserved about it because they didn't want to creep the other person out, because it was like, you don't really want to out yourself. And then also how, like, Eddie, I think it was the first time that he was with a man, so he was like figuring out his sexuality for himself, and he was just discovering himself, and it was just such a heartwarming, cute story. I always love a slow burn romance, so I saw this and I was like, yeah, it's very good. It's a little long, I would say, because of the slow burn romance, but I still think that if you care about the characters, which is a really big thing, you will enjoy the book. Like, that's all I can say. And I did, so I enjoyed it. But if you read it and you're like, man, these characters are so boring, I couldn't care about them, then you won't like the book. And I think that's pretty obvious. But I really liked it. I just remember having fond memories of reading it, and I was just like, this is so cute. That's what I was thinking. Also, just a lot of things were really discussed with care, and I really like the writing style. So give it a 4 out of 5. The final book, is this the final? Yes. The final book that I read in April was another fantasy. I think this is more middle grade, and it's Fablehaven by Brandon Mull. I remember very specifically how I came to read this book, and it was because I was on Instagram, and it was right after I watched Arcane, and there were a ton of things where it's like book recommendations if you liked Arcane, and this was one of them. So I just made a huge list of all of them. This is one of the ones that I ended up reading, and I will say this is not like Arcane. If you also saw those kind of posts, this is not like Arcane. The only thing is that there are like sibling dynamics, but genuinely the level is not the same, because these guys are like, I think the older sister is 13, the younger brother is like 10 or something, but they really are super young. And it is about these two siblings who, when their parents drop them off at their mysterious grandpa's house for like a week or something, or maybe even a weekend, I think it's a week, because their parents are going on a cruise. They go on like a magical adventure because they realize that he's like the caretaker of this magical world, and they live in this really nice house, and they like frolic, and where do they frolic? Like in the field, and they swim and they eat like honey and whatever. It's very whimsical and it's kind of summery, but the thing that, and it's just like a fantasy from there, and the thing that I didn't really like about this book is that the little brother literally made me scream, not scream, but like made me fume while I was reading it, because literally he has like an actual compulsion that makes him not follow directions, and it's literally so annoying to read. I don't know if it's just me, because I like really don't like that kind of stuff. It's like his grandpa would be like, don't do this, like there are gonna be horrible consequences, like for your own good, I'm gonna protect you. And he'll be like, yeah, bet. And then he goes and does it, and it's like disastrous consequences, and he's just like crying, and I'm like, literally stand up, like you did this to yourself. I don't know, it just happens twice, and the first time it's like kind of minor, but the second time is actually inexcusable, because it was like okay, this is a spoiler, but it literally like made their house get broken into, and it made their grandpa and grandma like no, their grandpa and like the not maid, but like one of the other caretakers get kidnapped, and it just like set off an absolutely disastrous plot, which I guess the author in some way needed us to get there so that they could be kind of like a climax or like a conflict to occur, because at that point there hadn't been a conflict. But it just made me immediately hate the little brother, and like I never forgave him. So if you get angry at stuff like that when little brothers don't do what they're told, even if their older sister is screaming at the top of her lungs for him to do it or to not do it, then this book will rage bait you, and I was rage baited. But besides that, I think it was okay. It's not too long. It just felt kind of juvenile, and I didn't realize it was gonna be middle grade, but it is middle grade. And yeah, I liked the whimsy. It was a cute book. Didn't really think too hard. It didn't elicit many emotions from me except for anger at the little brother. So yeah, that is Fablehaven by Brandon Mullen. I'll give it a 3 out of 5 stars because I think it was mostly my taste, because it probably wasn't catered to me. So now I'll be talking about the 3 books that I read in May, which is so little, and I'm kind of sad that I didn't read more, but all 3 of these books have been highly anticipated for me, so I feel good that I was able to get to them. And the first book that I read is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Emily Henry has been consistently coming up with books, and I haven't read her whole catalog. I read everything except For People We Meet on Vacation, but I was excited about this one because I think when I read the premise, it was supposed to be about like these 2 writers who have competition to like be the one who gets to write a biography about this reclusive former celebrity who really hasn't like been in the media at all. So like they get the opportunity to write that, and it's gonna be like exclusive, so they're really vying for it. And it's about this girl, this woman named Alice, who writes kind of like for a gossip column is her main thing, and it's versus this guy named Hayden, who is like the more experienced of the 2. Like he's written a really Pulitzer Prize winning biography for this other person, so it's like obviously he's the pick, and she's like, oh my god, like am I qualified? I'm gonna get beat out. He's so talented. What am I gonna do? And the thing about this book is that it tried to also kind of be a literary fiction, in that it talked about the woman's history and kind of her story as not a major plot point, but it did take up a decent amount of the book. And what I really, okay, this is just so personal. I feel like that's what my opinion is going to be for all the books, obviously. So take this as a grain of salt, but I just really found it so hard to have any sympathy for this old woman, because basically she is like a Kardashian. Like she had that level of wealth, and there's like a tragedy that strikes, and she's like, oh, now she's gonna be like a recluse. And I just like, we go into such detail of her history, where we literally go back to this old woman's grandpa, and then like her parents, and finally her and like her siblings, and then her like wonderful love story. But I really just didn't care about her at all, because she's like a rich white woman. Like, I'm so sorry, I know you suffered, but I just didn't feel sympathy for her, and I had so much trouble being really engaged or like shocked when whatever happened in her like massive family lineage, because I just didn't really care about her character that much. And I was just like, boo-hoo, like you still have your money to, like, you at the end of the day you still hop into your massive mansion and fly in your private jet, so like knock it off. But maybe that's just me and my lack of sympathy for this old woman. But because of that, I just didn't like her as a character. And then I just didn't really care that much about like the whole plot, where it's like who will get to write her biography, because I was like, I don't care about her biography. So then the only thing at that point that I would focus on is that the romance, the aspect of the romance. And I did kind of like the romance. I just felt like like I had read this romance before in one of Emily Henry's books. It kind of felt like Beach Read, which I think is the one where it's the woman who she's taking a break from writing because she's like a romance writer, and then her romances really aren't popular, and then she meets like this mystery writer or like historical fiction writer who's really popular, and this kind of is the same thing. It's like she's struggling with her career and this guy's like comfortably sat in his career, and I was like, okay, like I've seen this before, can we see something new? And it was kind of that same dynamic where he was more quiet than her and she was very bubbly. But this main character specifically, I don't know why, but like maybe this is literally just me being too critical and picky, but I feel like he would say something and it wouldn't even be funny at all, but she'd be like giggle, she'd be like chortle, she would laugh. Like so many times in the conversation she would laugh, and I'd just be like, why are you laughing? Because I'd be like, wait, why is she giggling for? But I just, that literally might just be me. But I have something else about their conversations too. But at some points, I said this before about Emily Henry's books, but I think they feel overly rom-com. Like they don't really feel real. Like when I was talking about The Unhoneymooners, I think it still felt kind of realistic, even though it had those absurd parts. It kind of balanced them well, but this one just felt like so overly romantic, and like the banter was like so banter that I was just like it became overly clear to me that these were not real people, and that kind of took me out of it because I was like, okay, like whatever, like pack it up, I know what's gonna happen. It just didn't really engage me that much because there's this one specific monologue that the guy gets to where he's like, oh my god, like the world is like going crazy, like I can't remember, but it just, when I was reading his monologue and his dialogue to Alice, I was like you are not a real person. Like Emily Henry wrote this with painstaking detail for you to say, and it's supposed to be like this big moment, but the only thing that I could kind of gauge from it was that you're not a real person. Like the ways that he spoke felt so written in a sense. Like I could just imagine Emily Henry like editing what he was saying. I don't know, I just don't know how to feel about this. I also just felt reminiscent kind of Taylor Jenkins Reid, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It kind of felt like she was trying to do that in the style where we would jump back and forth from the perspective of like the current romance that is happening and like the old lady's history with like all of her relatives and stuff, and just was kind of mid. I don't know why I keep on reading Emily Henry's books even if they don't hit or they haven't been hitting. But yeah, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I don't really have anything else coherent to say if I haven't seen anything coherent at all. The next book I have very, very exciting things to say about, and this is Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. Charlotte McConaughey. This I saw from Haley Pham Vlogs, and it's about this mystery with a family who is on this remote island where they are supposed to be like taking care of the whole island by themselves. There are only 4 of them. It's the dad and 3 siblings, and they have to like keep the island in check and running because they have like these extinct plants that are only on the island in the form of a seed in like their seed vault that they need to keep track of. So they're kind of doing all of those things in case global warming gets too bad. But what happens when a woman washes up and she has like her own agenda, and they all have a lot of secrets, and like they're trying to kind of like achieve their own goals without getting found out. I don't want to spoil too much, so I'm really gonna try and keep it brief with this one, but just know this is probably one of the best books that I read this year because it talks about climate change and global warming, and also balances the mystery aspects and also the familial grief that all of them feel, because well, it's kind of obvious, but I'm not gonna say it. But it's like there's grief involved, and there's a lot of very interesting family dynamics with overcoming that when like someone new comes. and it's just such an interesting book. It's really unlike anything that I have read before, and I think even though the premise sounds really unique, honestly the execution is so good and it really blows it out of the park. The mystery actually kept me on my toes. I really like the style that the mystery was introduced because it kind of felt like there were a lot of ways that the reader could interpret what was going on. Like, she gave us the ability to think through, and she didn't treat us like, the author didn't treat us like we were stupid. I think that she gave us the clues, and if we thought hard enough, which I did not because I usually don't, like, you could actually solve it. So I really like that aspect. It just was such a unique book. The writing style is actually really interesting because we swap perspectives from all 5 of like the main characters, so you get to kind of hear each of their thoughts and their worries, and they all have very interesting distinct voices. Because like for the youngest boy, his name's Orly, like we only ever get like descriptions about plants and the wildlife when we get to his perspective, so you kind of figure out like what are the priorities that each of these people hold, what are their motives. It's so intriguing, and I really just recommend this book so much. I think it's so good for present day. We're talking about climate change, and also just such a captivating read. Yeah, I liked it a lot, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I will definitely be reading the other books from this author. The final book that I read in May, and the final book for this video because it's already so long, is The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith. I think this came out fairly recently. I'm not sure when, but I saw this from Carrie Can Read again, and I think what she said about it was that it was like a Bridgerton-esque fae YA fantasy, and I'm always curious to see because I love reading fantasy, but recently I haven't been reading very like outstanding ones, I guess. But this was interesting. It's about this competition where if you are like one of the most eligible bachelorettes in the kingdom, which is ruled by a fae queen, you will get to marry her son, who is also fae, and then you'll like get to rule the kingdom. And a lot of the motivations for the girls is that like their family is not in poverty because they're all like upper class, but just like they're on the verge of like getting kicked out of that class level. Like the main character, Ivy, I think her name, like her family is shunned because of something that her sister did, because everyone in the like upper echelon, they get to make a bargain with the fae queen, and it's like, oh, like give me a nose job and I'll lose my finger, like I'll lose my pinkies or something. And like one of them's like, make me beautiful but I'll never turn left again, that kind of thing. But then Ivy's sister, her older sister, she makes like a really extreme bargain or something, and then she can't remember what the bargain is, or she can't remember what she gave up. And Ivy's whole thing is that she kind of wants to save her sister, because her sister like was missing for a while, and then also when she came back she just wasn't the same as she was before, and they had a really close bond. So her motivation is that she wants to join the competition so that like while being, if she wins, she'll be like the new fae queen, I guess, and then she'll be able to like have all the resources to save her sister, I think, or like make her sister happy. And it's kind of like Bridgerton in the sense that they do dances, and that whole kind of setting I guess is similar to Bridgerton, but besides that I don't think it's that similar. I will say that it kind of felt repetitive at some points because the fae queen has like different trials for them to get through to show that they are worthy of being like her son's bride. And in the beginning I think there's 6 girls or something, and all of them are like the worst enemies, and they felt kind of 2D in my opinion. There like is a little effort to give them a little bit more of a personality and character, which I liked, but it still made them feel a little 2D. I don't know, it didn't win me over that much. But the thing that I didn't really like is how they kind of acted bipolar with each other, because at some point they'd all be like the worst enemies and it'd be like 1v1, or other times it would be like they were all besties and then one of them would betray and they'd be like back to the 1v1. So in that sense, their relationships with each other felt kind of superficial, and I was like, wasn't that interested. And also the trials, I know there was like an overarching theme for all the trials in what they were, like to show the cruelty and how inhumane the Fae Queen is, but I just felt kind of repetitive again too. I just wasn't the most intrigued by this plot, and there's also kind of a side plot that I guess turns into like the main plot besides the competition, but that just didn't feel that groundbreaking either. So I don't know what I was really expecting from it. I don't know. I didn't really know anything about it going into it besides that I heard it from Carrie Can Read. But I don't think it was that special of a fantasy besides the setting that's kind of Bridgerton-esque. So if whatever I've been talking about sounds intriguing, I would recommend you read it. I just don't think it's anything that special. Again, I feel like fantasy has kind of fallen into this formulaic thing, because after that I read another book and I was like, wait, it's getting too formulaic for me, but it just felt kind of predictable, except for the actually wait, there's one thing that I have to give this book credit for. The last like 10%, there is like a massive twist and it like jumps into this whole, like there's like a time jump that shocked me because I was like, what the hell's going on? But for the rest of the book, I was kind of just like, meh. It's interesting. The romance was okay, not my favorite, but not overly offensive to me either. I don't know, I gave it a 3 out of 5, and it's not the most memorable to me, but I think in the moment reading it, I wasn't too upset. I think I was like okay with what I was reading. So that wrap up was kind of bad, but if it made any sense, those are the books that I read in April and May. Right now in June, I am trying to read more books. I read some interesting books, I'll say for sure, and I read a pretty intriguing arc, so I'm excited to talk about that later when the video comes out. But that's all for this video, and those are all the books that I read in April and May.